Hi, I'm Brendan. This is the ever lovely Chelsea. That guy over there is the artist formerly known as Tim. You're watching Life on Film, and today we're going to be discussing the movie The Human Experience.
Every human being who thinks about it is looking for meaning. They're looking for answers to the most elementary questions. Who am I? How did I get here? What am I supposed to do? Does it finally make any difference?
The Human Experience is a feature-length documentary which sees four close friends, two of whom are brothers, travelling around the world to experience the hardships and the sufferings of different communities in order to get to the bottom of the big questions about human dignity and the biggest question of all, what is the meaning of the human experience? Chelsea?
I thought it was a really interesting film. I really liked the way that the brothers go to different experiences that can be quite radically different in a way from the normal Western way of doing things, which can be kind of plain, I suppose, compared to the way that they were doing it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this documentary. I think it's something that everyone should watch. What really interested me about the film was that it did what some TV programs and documentaries have done in the past, which is sort of supposedly fish out of water. You take a person who's in and put them in a situation where they're supposed to experience, what it's like to be homeless or what it's like to be poor in Africa or South America. But the interesting thing is that the two brothers themselves are actually dealing with their own poverty in a way, or poverty of spirit. They actually live together in a group home.
That's right.
And they explain that at the start. And so they've had negative experiences themselves, and you can really tell when they interact with the various people that they encounter that they have real empathy, because they do know what it's like to suffer and to go without. Maybe not always in a material sense, but definitely in an emotional sense. And that's different from your usual, secret millionaire or, homeless for a week. You see quite a bit on TV when they take someone who's quite wealthy, put them in a situation where there's deprivation, and have them sort of, shed tears and have their eyes open and, oh, this is so terrible, this is happening. Whereas these people actually see the dignity and beauty of the people they're with, and it's not condescending at all, and it's not like, well, we're now going to go back to our mansion now. It's like a genuine desire to commune with other human persons rather than just, have let's slum it for a week, and so that was really made the documentary for me.
Yeah, and I think, this is a classic example for me of there are documentaries and then there are documentaries, and this is a documentary. And everyone's like, what the heck are you talking about? This guy's had too much coffee.
Speaking Latin.
There are documentaries and documentaries, and I like documentaries. No, I think this film is, there's a beautiful soundtrack that accompanies with it. The visuals in place are really quite stunning, and what is so great about it is it gets to the truth of some profoundly important questions about suffering, about the human person, and about human dignity. In fact, I would suggest to you this is probably one of the most human dignity orientated, most, and for want of a better term, pro-life films you will ever watch that does not mention abortion once. And that's a pretty high praise. It's a hard thing to do. How do you do that? Well, you do that by focusing on the dignity of the human person and by focusing on the question of suffering and how those two intersect, and that's what they've done. And this documentary is just, I can't rave about it enough.
Yeah, I like the mix between the real life, them going and living it, and the little quotes and snippets from philosophers and, rabbi and, all these different kind of people that give really great little short quotes of wisdom about what being human really is. And you can take a lot from there. I think it's not just a once watch kind of film. You really need to absorb it a lot more.
Oh, those talking heads, some of those talking heads too, there's some big names in there who provide some great, profound little insights to sort of, the icing on the cake of what you're watching unfold in front of you.
There's a great line in there where one of the experts they talk to, and he's dealing with some very dire situations with children, and he says, you know what, where there's life, there's hope. If there's human beings, there's hope. And I think this documentary really captures that, and the essence of it is, it's so much of what makes us human is actually about how we treat each other and how we love each other. Ultimately, the misplaced priorities, the things that people think are important that ultimately aren't important. And you see you know, in the wealthy countries around the world, in the West, and where they're coming from in New York, ultimately people are very focused on material things, and they think that those material things bring them happiness. But you see, as the documentary progresses, there's real joy and genuine happiness amongst people who have nothing. And ultimately, that's the message of the film.
Yeah, and I think to me, this is what you really get to the heart of it here, don't you? This whole question of what's wrong in the West. In many ways, the human experience could have been called "What's Wrong with Western Culture?" Because really, that's by the end of it, you're like, you know what? We are living in an almost dreamlike alternate reality state where we think what we think is normal is not really normal. And the only way you realise that is by getting out and going, experiencing and seeing, you know, leper colonies in Africa, people living homeless in New York City, the lost children of Peru, and you realise experience after experience that they have and portray on the screen in front of us in this film. These people are happy, they are living meaningful lives, they have authentic community. They have nothing though. They don't have lots of stuff, they don't have lots of money, and they don't have iPhones, any of that stuff. And here we are, we're almost, I guess, almost like modern zombies. We wander around stuck to our devices, and we don't have community. We talk about community a lot, and it's all very important. We use communities become a real buzzword now in a lot of government policies and that, but we don't really have it in the West.
We're really living at a superficial level, and it becomes really apparent that these people who, although they have suffering, we try and avoid suffering at all costs. You know, take Panadol, take whatever we need to get rid of the pain, and yet they have suffering and they have genuine purpose,
and
we don't have
massive suffering to it. It's not like, oh, I got a sprained toe. It's like, I've got leprosy. You know, it's like, okay, well, you know, the fact that my Facebook didn't load up in 5 seconds, probably not a big deal then, is it? You know?
Yeah, they're living at a higher level than what we are, and they actually know their purpose and where they fit into the world, whereas we all kind of walk around lost, kind of at a superficial level, not really knowing what we're doing,
it makes them more human, and that's the thing, the human experience.
Authentically human.
Yeah, they're more authentically human, but because they have that sense of love and interaction with other people.
Yeah, and in fact, that's at one point, the Italian philosopher who they have, one of the talking heads, he says a lot of it in the West is about living in the superficial. And the problem is, whoever controls the superficiality then controls you. That's the point. And if you live in the superficial, you will be controlled. Whereas if you live a much deeper, meaningful existence, you will never be dominated by your culture. And I think if you could sum up in I guess in one word, the problem that they're really highlighting in our culture in the West, and that is the problem of utilitarianism. And you realise when you watch this documentary how grave and evil utilitarian thought is, which basically, instead of looking at a human person and seeing the person and seeing the great wonder of every human life, no matter how much suffering, no matter how much difficulty, no matter what condition they are in, a utilitarian way of thinking looks at them and says, well, what utility is there in their life? What's the point? What can they do for the economy? What can they do for themselves? What can they do for our society? If they can't give us something, there's no utility, then we don't value them. And that's really, I think, what this film is when you, I mean, it's probably a lot of things, but I think this is one of the key things that's really driving it in the West, is the utilitarian thought, which now dominates Western culture so much.
Yeah, and it's at the heart of the choice for abortion, it's at the heart of the choice for euthanasia, and it's at the heart of the eugenic policies and screenings of Down syndrome children, and abortion, preemptive abortion, and so, ultimately, it's as you say, Brendan, it's looking at a person but not seeing a person. It's seeing a number, it's seeing a social issue, it's seeing whatever, any number of things, and assigning value to that thing, and it's no one wants to be treated like that, but we all treat other people like that. That's the big problem.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's one little moment towards the beginning of the film where I think they it's almost like an Easter egg to give you a hint about what this film is really all about. And when they're living homeless on the street, I don't know if you remember, they stop in front of that television store and watch. There's a movie playing on the television, and I don't know if you saw what the movie was that was playing on the television set in this TV appliance store that they're watching. It's Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life, a Christmas movie. And that movie is all about what happens when one human being is no longer, their existence is basically stripped out of reality, that they don't exist anymore, and all of the things that they did, basically how the world has changed irrevocably, and really the world is harmed basically by the loss of that one person. And you realise at that point, this is what this movie's getting at. Imagine if you could draw out a human life like sort of like a line, and then off that line, every time they interacted with someone, good or bad, and then every time that interaction caused that person, and you would see this massive, sort of almost like a spider web of interaction, just one life. Now, so you imagine now pulling that one person out of it, and the whole thing crumbles, and all of the positive, and even the good that comes from suffering that someone might cause to other people, and all those sort of things, they're all gone. And you realise at that point, man, every human life is profoundly important.
Breathtaking reality. A new, unrepeatable, unprecedented adventure of a human life.
How are you going to rate this movie out of 5 stars? Chelsea, what do you think?
Oh, I thought this was a really inspiring film. I thought it came out of it thinking like, you want to make a difference now from there. And so I'd probably rate it quite highly. I think I'd give it probably about 4.
Oh, that's good. Good rating.
Yeah, I'd give it 4 stars as well, Brendan. I was inspired by it, and it's, as I said, it's something I think that everyone should watch at least once.
Well, for me, I'm tempted to sort of, stay with you guys, but I'm actually going to go 4.5, and I'm not doing that just to, I'll go one better than you, I'll go a half better. But I actually think this is, I really love this documentary. I watch it over and over. Some documentaries you watch and like, oh yeah, that was great, I watched it. This is one you watch over and over again. It really not only is about the human experience, but I think it gives you an experience that sort of pulls you into something quite beautiful as well at the same time. So for me, I would give this 4.5 stars, and I think it's not only is it about the content and the message, but it's the way it conveys it. And I dare anyone to basically watch this film and not walk away at the end of it without being changed or touched in some, even the smallest way. I guarantee you this movie will sort of grab you and will say, what sort of life are you living? And really, that's the heart of the whole pro-life thing, isn't it? If we had more people who truly loved and were not afraid of suffering, then we would probably have a lot less abortion, I would say, going on in our culture, and a lot more people standing up against abortion. Okay, folks, another episode come to an end. I think, what are we going to say? Probably 4 stars. I won't add in that extra half star here, but to the consensus probably is this is a 4-star film. Highly worth checking out. If you can't find it at your local DVD store, get online, look up Grassroots Films, and get yourself a copy of The Human Experience. One of the best documentaries probably you'll see. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time on Life on Film.